Hello again. I'm here with another set of book reviews. This time it is Mosquito Man by Jeremy Bates. This is the first book in the World's Scariest Legend series. Just general books that are connected. Second book is going to be The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. And of course, another Bentley Little book, Bentley Little, The Summoning. So let me get to my intro and then I will be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. So, let's see the books that we cover here. Let me talk about the Final Girl Support Group first. This is a Grady Hendrix book, so let me read what it talks about here. Like his best-selling novel, The Southern Book Club Guide to Slaying Vampires, Grady Hendrix's latest is a fast-paced, frightening, and wickedly humorous thriller. From chainsaws to summer camp slayers, the Final Girl Support Group pays tribute to and slightly subverts our most popular horror films, movies like The Texas Chainsaw, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Scream. Lynette Tarkenton is a real-life Final Girl who survived the massacre for more than a decade. She's been meeting with 5 other Final Girls and their therapist in a support group for those who survived the unthinkable, working to put their lives back together. The one woman missing a meeting and their worst fears are realized. Someone knows about the group and is determined to rip their lives apart piece by piece. But the thing about the Final Girls is that no matter how bad the odds are, no matter how dark the night, how sharp the knife, they will never ever give up. Now, I was a little worried about this book, to be honest with you, because I wasn't as crazy about the Southern Guide book club vampire book that he wrote. And when I first started reading this, it actually felt like it was just a bunch of girls were at this support group and they're just kind of like, you know, complaining about stuff. And it felt a lot like the girls in that Southern book club. In fact, he does a wink to the book club book in this book when there's one of the girls and a couple of other ones actually go to this hospital. And they say, oh, how do you know all each other? And the one person says, oh, because we're in the same book club. So they do actually make a joke about the book before, but it is a lot different in my mind, especially because this book is all about pretty much Lynette Tarkenton. Lynette Tarkenton pretty much takes control of this book. Yes, you meet all the other Final Girls, and I love the way Grady Hendrix uses every Final Girl in there. You know, one girl is definitely Friday the 13th, one girl is definitely from a Halloween story, another girl is definitely, you know, kind of linked to Nightmare on Elm Street, but some of the things are changed, but in general, you know exactly where all of these girls are coming from. You know, this one comes from Scream, and you know, so she really does pay homage to the big serial killer stories. And like Scream in a way, this does have a lot of mystery in it, as far as who's the killer, what's going on, and it bounces you from, oh, is it this person? No, it's not that person. Is it this person? And I really like that about the book. Again, it's brutal. In the beginning, it does start off a little slow. But then, again, Lynette Tarkenton is a great character who kind of like spearheads this story and is definitely a tough female. And I love reading the story. This one, to be honest with you, this, you know, brought my love of Grady Hendrix back. Because I really did enjoy this story, especially considering it's about a subject matter that I am very aware of. Growing up in the 80s, I'm very aware of the Final Girl scene. And I liked what he did with it. I guess it could be a couple little nitpicks I had about the book, but in general, I really did think this was a very good slasher trope novel. I would definitely give it a 4 stars. Highly recommend. Final Girl Support Group. I'm very glad that it wasn't a disappointment like I thought it might be. Speaking of another famous author that I've been covering here, is Bentley Little. Now this one, I'll read you what this says. Darkness is descending on the small town of Rio Verde, Arizona. An evil older than time is rising from the desert, waiting for a night to fall and a reign of terror to begin. Brad Woods has performed a lot of autopsies, but never one like this. The body is purged of all blood. Fear has made Sue Wing run from the darkened school and into the night. A fear so powerful she can only name it using Cantonese myths of her grandmother. The Ginsi, if I'm saying that right. The corpse who drinks blood. Reporters like Rich Carter don't believe in the supernatural, but all the signs are pointing to the same conclusion. A vampire is stalking the streets of Rio Verde. No, Rich Carter doesn't believe in such things, not yet, but he will come to believe with faith, born of horror after horror. Now, when I first found out that Bentley Little did a vampire book, I said, "Oh, this is going to be interesting." It is different than I suspected, and I think some people didn't like that because it is a little different. What I mean by this is it's not the typical Western vampire. It is a Cantonese, Chinese, I guess, vampire myth. And it's done pretty well, especially nowadays with the racism and the anti-Asian racism that people are talking about. This does delve into it. When you read Bentley Little books, you read a bunch of books by an author, you start seeing some of his political bent, especially somebody like Stephen King, who wears that on his sleeve. Bentley Little, from the books I've read by Bentley Little, a lot of his ire goes to the people who are, I guess, anti-immigration, and he does have a lot of stories that touch on that. You'll see that in a bunch of his books where he'll mention the anti-immigration sentiment and how and definitely paints it in a bad light. And this book has Asian American family and this Sue Wing as pretty much the center post of this story, and because her grandmother knows about these vampires, whatever you want to call them. I forgot how you say it, the name of this group, but these Chinese couple Ginsi vampires, which are basically the Chinese version of vampires. The vampire actually targets this family, and there is a lot of anti-Asian American stuff in this book because of that. And of course, it isn't looked that good. And there's a great scene where someone stands up to this to this bullying, basically. And I did enjoy it. I think especially nowadays it's kind of a timely book, even though it was written back then. I also like I like the characters. I like the way this vampire kind of uses this preacher. Almost, it reminds me a little bit of The Wicked, from what I remember, where they kind of use this preacher who builds this church, to this vampire creature, who builds this church to this vampire creature and gets other people stirred up. He basically stirs people up to be anti-Asian, to start, believing in this blood-drinking vampire, to give themselves to this vampire. So it's not just a vampire who comes out there and does the typical, oh, I'm going to go and, target this one woman because she reminds me of somebody I knew 100 years ago. No, this vampire is a monster. This is a monster that actually wants to get dominion over, not Dominion is another book that Bentley Little wrote, but that wants to basically, start a church, start people worshiping him. And it is done well, like I said, and it does have the whole typical Bentley Little, the town, have to draw together. In this instance, though, it's basically part of the town, one part of the town fighting another part of the town. And it's done. I think it's done pretty well. And as it comes to a vampire story, if you're a fan of vampire stories, I think it's kind of interesting, especially because it's a different take. Without the steaks and the garlic, it's a completely different take of the vampire myth. And again, I like the characters, that they were done well, and I would give this another, at least I don't know if I would give it 4 stars, but it's definitely a little bit above a typical Bentley Little in my mind because of, you know, the subject matter and the way he writes it. Plus, I did like that it had an Asian American character at the center of it. And that's The Summoning. So we had the final girls in The Summoning. Last one I'm going to talk about is Mosquito Man. Now, I read Sleep Experiment by this Jeremy Bates, so I wanted to read more of books in this, I guess, this series. So Mosquito Man was on Scribd that I could read. There's, I guess, 5 books here. Basically, they just kind of loosely put them together in a Legends series. There's no need to read one as opposed to the other. From what I can tell, they're all individual stories. But I said, oh, I'll read it from the beginning, and I'll read Mosquito Man. So let me read what this is about here. After a woman bangs at the door in the middle of the night and promptly dies from her injury, a couple's remote cabin getaway becomes a psychological night of terror. As they are hunted by an unknown assailant, now they must go far beyond what they thought themselves capable of if they hope to save their young children and survive until morning. This, again, was a good book. I did like so far from Jeremy Bates. I've read, this is the second book I've read by Jeremy Bates, and I've liked both of them. This book is more of kind of like, okay, here is the killer, the supernatural killer that comes and attacks people. It does have a little bit of backstory, which I do like. I like the backstory involved with this, Mosquito Man killer. It is supernatural in origin. It is not an actual man. It is more a mosquito than a man. And it does play almost like a slasher, though, in a way. Because, basically this family goes to this area. They have, they see this totem pole with this mosquito on the bottom. And that's supposed to make it something really sacred, as far as, something most important to this old, I guess, Native American tribe that was in the area. And when this family actually gets confronted with this Mosquito Man, there's a huge, horrible thing that they have to deal with. In the story, actually, I'm kind of jumping around here. In the story, it starts off with this child who basically is by himself. His whole family disappears, and he's found on a road. His family basically left for dead. And this person comes back to the same town, the same lake where his family disappeared. And then you find out a little bit more about what happened to him when he was younger, and you find out how the Mosquito Man was connected to him and this family. And it's really about a family survival, and I really did love the family. I love the dynamics of the family and the way he did characters. I actually do like how Jeremy does characters. I think he did this even better than Sleep Experiment, because I believe there were a little bit more characters involved in this book. And I was a little bit more interested in this book than the other one. Again, it is a short book, 285 pages. I think, if you have Scribd, I would definitely check out Mosquito Man. I think it is a good book. And this list of books that I covered, actually, all of them, I could recommend all of them. Summoning, Final Girl Support Group, and Mosquito Man. I liked all of them, and I think they all are worthy books to read if you're in the interest of reading any kind of book. And then, if you sat through all of this babbling that I do here, I want to thank you again for watching, and I appreciate all of the subscribers that I have and all the people who have watched and liked and commented. And I just want to say thank you again. And I'm so glad to be doing this again and enjoying sharing books with you. I'm definitely reading a lot more books because of this, which is a real cool goal that I have from doing this. It kind of encourages me to read more books. And I have a lot more books to cover on this. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say. So thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.